I'm not that good. Okay, so another thing I probably should have had foresight to tell you to do would be to type in all the data. Yeah, this is fun. Uh, just so you know, because I'm not a terrible person, my philosophy is practice should always be harder than the game, so that the game is kind of like a welcome respite from practice. So you see that there's like 70 data points here that we have to type in. It won't be like that on the test. Right? Much less stuff to type in. Right? It's not an exercise in your ability to type stuff into a calculator. Like the test will be 3 hours long. The first half of the test, you typing stuff in. No, it's just awful. Yeah, so it only took me 58 seconds to type in the data. So up to you how you want to do it. You want to make a frequency table and go from there. That's fine. I'm going to go the calculator route because honestly, I don't think you could ever get enough practice in the early going with how you navigate through the calculator. All right. It asks for just a frequency histogram. Didn't say create a frequency table. Right? That's your key indicator that a calculator approach would be acceptable. Although on the test, I'm going to make it very clear that calculator approaches are acceptable. It'll say calculator approaches are acceptable. All right. Just always, but aside from that, always keep in mind what is the goal of the question. The goal of the question is to create a frequency histogram. Once you produce that, if you have all the bells and whistles, the labels, the proper heights of the bars and things like that, intervals of the appropriate size, then you've done what you need to do. It doesn't really matter what else is written there, right? So now this last a little bit there, the caveat, with at least 5 intervals, right? So if you're making a table, you want 5 or more rows within that table. If you're not making a table, if you're just going right to the actual graph, then you want 5 or more bars, right? So basically, it's saying the more the merrier. I'm trying to avoid a person creating one bar and saying from 0 to 206, yeah, they're all there. There's your frequency histogram. All right, so that's really where we're at. Now, this says for the year 2005. All right, I put my 2005 stuff in L2. So it's a little bit of a twist of what we've been doing, a slight adjustment, but not anything too crazy. Otherwise, I wouldn't be throwing it at you on a review. And again, we have our data in, so rarely will we have to go back and look at the data again. It's only for the Z-score stuff. All right, so let me do key press history. And make it bigger. Clear all that. Okay. So I have my data in. I'm hitting second y equals. The last time we used this calculator, we used it for scatter plots. We got to go back to frequency histogram. So let's make that adjustment. I mentioned this last time, I like working in plot 1. Just manipulating plot 1 as I need to. Right? It keeps things simpler, and I'm less likely to get an error for some conflicting issue. Because if you have plot 2 maybe pointing to, I don't know, L3 and L4, but you don't have data in there, then you're out of luck. All right, you're going to have a problem. All right, so I'm going to hit enter on plot 1. I'm going to turn it on if it's not already on. And then I'm going to select the histogram. I'm going to hit the right arrow, so down to get into the type, right arrow to get to the one that looks like a histogram. Now, my X list is talking about L1. I don't want L1. Not this time. I want L2, so I'm going to change that. So second 2. All right. So let me just snip this, put it into our notes, so we have it. Oh, I don't want that either. There we are. All right. The only reason I'm changing it is because I put the data in L2. All right. If you're looking at a single raw data set, that you most likely you put that in L1, then you're gonna make your L list L1. So again, X list is always referring to where you put the data. All right. So on a side note, but a very important side note, and I'll talk more about the full structure of the test in a little bit, but you will be allowed a 3-inch by 5-inch index card with handwritten notes. Right? So I've mentioned this before, but I mention it now because if you're looking at that, I'm never going to remember that. Well, you don't have to remember it. Your index card has to remember it. Right? So 1 3-inch by 5-inch index card. Oh, I'll just say note card, because it doesn't technically have to be an index card. People have asked in the past, does it have to be something known as an index card? Just some piece of paper that is cut to 3 inches by 5 inches. All right. And also, just to address it, because somebody's asked in the past, the answer to the question of how do I know if it's 3 inches by 5 inches? Just in case, there are rulers you can measure. Your phones do that now. The new app and the update. I played around with that big time the other day. It's very like addictive. The Measure app on the new update on iPhone, yeah.
Yeah, it actually works.
Yeah, it's crazy. You gotta have the good lighting though. Oh, and it's got a level built in too. Oh, perfectly level right now. Steady as a rock. Movie reference? Yeah, the lighting's not good right now, but and besides, you can't see it anyway. But yeah, you could actually measure. It's pretty cool. If anybody gets that movie reference, I'll be so thrilled. Steady as a rock. He's like, put my other hand. Okay. You don't know this yet, but your grade is dependent on movie references. So Zoom. Now, okay, so actually a good learning moment. Sometimes this happens where, and I don't know why it happens. I have not figured this out yet. When you're in this menu, sometimes the alpha lock automatically goes on. And so when you hit Zoom, a little menu bar comes out down at the bottom. It's really the most annoying thing ever. It makes you feel like you're doing something wrong, but you're not. The calculator is just being weird. If you have an alpha lock on here, that means that anything that you hit is going to go to the alpha version of that button. So F1, F2, like why would I want that? Why would I want, instead of the math button, why would I want the letter A here? That doesn't make sense, right? Unless my list is defined as some letter. So what I would do first before hitting zoom is I'd hit alpha to turn that off, and then zoom stat. Zoom 9 is the zoom stat. All right. So zoom 9 is so incredibly important here. Zoom 9. All right, that's the stat. That's the stat zoom. What that'll do is give you what the calculator thinks is the best viewing window for your data set and the best scale. All right. Viewing window, it's almost always correct. So it'll tell you the lowest and the highest in terms of the open frame, so you can see the entire picture. So we're good to go there. But you can see, I mean, if you look carefully, you can see our bars don't really line up perfectly with these tick marks. So something's a little off. And besides, I need numbers anyway because this has to get on paper. So I'm going to hit window and take a look at what that X scale is. That X scale is so important. Now, my X min, the calculator is saying go from 2 to 192 point whatever. Think about that and whether or not that's something you really want. Do you want it to go from 2, or do you want a more convenient number that's closer to 2? I'm thinking more convenient number that's closer to 2, right? So make a minor adjustment, make it 0. Do I want it to go to exactly 192.167, or do I want a convenient number that's close to 192.167? Convenient number that's close to 192.167. What is that convenient number? 200, yeah. I mean, obviously 193 is more convenient than 192.167. 195 is even more convenient. But like, if you're allowed to pick and choose, like, go for the gold. Take something really nice. Now, do I want to go by 27s? If I'm going from 0 to 200, do I want to go by 27s? No. Do I want to go by 30s? 30 is better than 27, sure. But 30 doesn't divide evenly into 200. 25 is the most convenient value that's close to 27. All right. So these are adjustments that you make on the fly. Now you can go with what's there. It's just going to be a little uglier.
What if you just scale it to 37? Will you judge me for making a weird?
I will not judge you for making a weird thing.
As long as it looks like.
As long as you have a nice looking graph that's properly labeled, that's really the skill I'm looking for. All right. And besides, in a test or during a test, people do weird things all the time, so I try not to judge people much for that. So these are, again, things that you're going to make adjustments for. Calculator gives, but you adjust. Correct. You'd only mess around with the Y max if after you hit graph, like one of the bars goes off the grid, right? But we'll see that in a second. If I have to make a change on that, I'll make a change. But then next move would be again to hit graph and this is the number one error when it comes to people using a calculator approach to this. They get to all of this stuff, they do all this stuff right, and then they hit zoom 9 again, which puts it right back to the settings it was at, and they can't figure out why they went wrong. At that point, you hit graph so that it locks in the changes that you made. That was weird. I think I hit the wrong thing, but the right thing came up. This is a nice moment. All right, so this looks like a nicer graph because I can't see the tick marks on the bottom of the screen, which means that they're coinciding with the bars. That's great news. So now what I need are some numbers, some intervals. If I hit trace, trace is the big key there. Now you manipulated the X scale, so you should actually know what the intervals go by. You're going by 25s, but maybe you don't. So we have this information now. When you hit trace, I'm going to make a bar that's 16 units high that has a width of 0 to less than 25. And you could actually use the notation that they use here, 0 to less than 25, instead of saying 0 to 24. That allows for the possibility of decimals. You never know. So in this context, which I really haven't gotten into yet, it doesn't seem like there'd be a place for that, but it's infant mortality rate. I don't know, like rates are percentages, things like that. Odds are they're rounded numbers, so decimals could be fair game, right? So I need bars that can go up as high as 16. So I think going by 2s seems reasonable. Going by 1s even if you want, but I'll go by 2s. I'll label it all the way. You don't have to label each tick mark as long as I know what your scale is in some way. You could write frequency going by twos, or I'll even allow just labeling the first tick mark. If you label the first tick mark as 2, then I know that you're letting this distance be equal to 2, so every subsequent distance would also be worth 2 units. Right, same thing. Oh, actually, no. I was about to say same thing on the x-axis, but that would be completely false. So pretend I didn't even start that sentence. All right, so 0 to 25, 0 to less than 25. So here's 0. Here's what I'm going to call 25. So 0 to less than 25. Or 0 to 24 if you're discounting the decimals. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, really 7 intervals, but I'll put 8. 2. So this one again is 16 high. I'll just chuck the 16 in there, playing it safe. One of those, try to avoid one of those weird mistakes that might happen during a test. I gotta get rid of that. Doesn't recognize the pen on the. All right, so the next one has a value of 1, and that's 25 to less than 50. Value of 1, so I'll just chuck that in there. The next 2 intervals are the same height, both at 5. And that's 50 to less than 75, 75, 75 to less than 100, so then we have 2, 0, 2, 0. Well, I guess the last one's irrelevant. What's Sierra Leone? 165. Yeah, so the last one is irrelevant. We don't really need it. So 202. So I'll actually do that first. 2, 0, 2. Let me just chuck that last interval. 100 to less than $1.25. 125 to less than $1.50. 150 to less than 175. All right, and so somewhere you need to indicate what these are. They're intervals. Oh, actually, I went with x's. X is fine. That's all I need. All right, they would have a proper name. In this case, infant mortality rate for the year 2005. I don't really need that. The intervals that break up those, it's not really necessary. I just need X and F. I want you to keep that simple. All right. When we get to technological applications of this, then we can get more specific. That's really what the end game is anyway. All right. So that is how you would do it on the calculator. How you would do it by hand is really kind of like this, but on paper, because you'd be looking at the lowest value that you have, which is 2. The highest value that you have is 165. You'd be thinking about convenient ways in which you would get from 2 to 165. So you'd say I'm going from 0 to 9, 10 to 19, or 0 to 24, 25 to 29. Then you count up each number that falls in those intervals, and each one of those numbers would correspond to a frequency, and then you'd have it. Was there a question? Oh, you did. I'm having a moment though. Okay, yeah. No, because I thought, because I didn't see the 1 there for a second, so I was like, wait a minute, this is supposed to add to 31, but it's only adding to 30. What happened? And I realized. So, all right.